Greetings, exalted one. Your presence with me, the great Pharaoh Mathotep, shows you have been truly blessed by the sun god Ra himself. Look at my kingdom, blessed one. Egypt has prospered for centuries, with the gods smiling upon it with their luminous, immortal teeth lighting the star. And do you know why Egypt is so powerful? We have a glorious invention, a gift from the gods to us, and not those Mesopotamian heathens who claim to have been given it first. Those godless Babylonians with their oh-so-majestic gardens. Oh, dear Horus, stick to horticulture, you witless flies. We Egyptians have writing. It is the Bronze Age, after all. And what better way to record the wondrous events of this time than through writing? Oral storytelling is a torment modern people will never bear again. In 1,000 years, we may never speak at all, so enjoy my thunderous voice, as deep as the watery domain of Sobek, for talking may soon be as archaic as those imprudent Sumerians over there. Oh, you think you're so special with your sacred language and your farmers and your potters. Bah! Your legacy is nothing but clubs and sticks. My chariot armies will conquer the hell out of you someday. Writing is what separates the heathen from the uplifted, dear child. Carving our symbols of eyes and birds and crocodiles upon our temple walls shall chronicle our history and dazzle future historians with how splendid our blessed culture truly was. Of course, I need not imply that people will ever look back on us as history. The kingdoms of Egypt will last forever and will reign supreme for all eternity. Unlike those stupid Greeks over there, they make me so enraged with their scholars and their big fluffy helmets. I will erase the memory of your profane islands and your glorified rowboats. Our gods can beat up your gods, you godless Greeks, you Trojan twits. You hellish Hellenics, I will ensure the death of your legacy. In fact, the all-seeing eyes and records of the god Thoth have granted me a vision of my future beyond the afterlife. And when I pass on to the next world, my soul has been reincarnated as a youthful scribe with divine potential, and I use my glorious gift of writing to write fictional narratives about crocodile bird creatures with weapons of light and fire? Wait, those crocodile birds are called dinosaurs, which is a Greek term for terrible lizards? Screw writing! I don't care if the gods have blessed this kingdom. Burn it to the ground!
That was a good intro, wasn't it, David? I mean...
It certainly was something.
It certainly was something. That is not a lie. Okay. Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show that consistently asks so much of our fellow listeners while simultaneously giving so little. I'm Matt Donald.
And I'm Matt David.
And we're back! You ready for us, world, huh? We're gonna bring this house... I'm not a cool person, David. I don't... I'd love to be cool, but, I just can't.
Get in your own way.
I'm sorta cool if you look at it a different way, right?
Yes. Yes, if they stuck you in a refrigerator. Anyway.
What's up, David? What's going on over there in Japan?
Not too much of note. I'm particularly busy this season because musicians are always busy during the holidays.
Oh, so you're busy. All right, let's get through this. Who cares what's going on there? Move on! So screw anything that's going on there. You're really busy. It's the holiday season. Yeah, festivity. Yeah. Who cares?
Well, Japanese Thanksgiving is different from American Thanksgiving, but this is not the place to talk about that.
I didn't know you had Thanksgiving at all. But yeah.
Well, they have like a labor Thanksgiving. They're grateful for the work you do, and they give us that Thursday off. But like, I have an all day long rehearsal instead. So whatever, no holiday.
Well, it's not as notable because like Thanksgiving has started out in America because of the Pilgrims coming to.
Yes,
America,
and the whole tradition of like sharing what you're thankful for. At least my family has that tradition every year. around the dinner table. We share what we're thankful for. They don't do that here, it seems.
Well, I feel like
Anyways,
they just took the American holiday and be like, how can now that we're in a global society, how do we make that sort of our own thing as well? Well, obviously we can't do that sort of background of it. Okay. Anyways.
Well, and kind of the same with Halloween.
Before I forget, I wanted to say this up front because, listeners might listen and be like, what the hell is this? And then turn it off.
Turn it off before 5 minutes have gone by.
Right, exactly. So, The Ritwit is now officially on iTunes. You can find it there. You can rate it. Give it a positive review or a negative review. Whatever one you want. Be honest. I mean, please be positive. We're trying so hard.
We're doing our best. It may not be great, but we are better than you, so...
No, we're not. We're way worse than you. Should I be honest and try and prep?
Where do you toe the line on that, right?
I don't know. What's going on? Just speak from your heart, but just be kind.
We would appreciate kind comments. We would appreciate if you have criticisms that you couch them in nice terms, rather than just rip us new holes somewhere.
Yeah,
but,
go rhino it all out on us, right?
It's one of those things that this is your opportunity to share something that is important to you, listeners, with your friends, with other people who might be similarly fond of this show, and to give us a chance to, hey, maybe we're doing something a little bit not as well as we could, and here's how we can do better. That would be wonderful.
Well, that is all wonderful, too. However, the main thing I want is that the more ratings it gets on iTunes, the more likely it to be noticed by random iTunes listeners. So that's really the important thing. So
it is true as well. The more reviewed it is, the more advertised it is. I do notice.
If you feel like, if you want to have more personal comments like that, that'd be great, too. But also,
that's great for our contact form, which we'll talk about later.
All right, anyways, so what will we rip off from this month? You go first, David.
Sure. All right. I rewatched a childhood... quote-unquote favorite of mine with the second movie of this burgeoning franchise at the time, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. And, oh my goodness, I was so dissatisfied again with the character replacement that they did to give just the tiniest amount of backstory. There was a team of 5 warriors that were already in place from the previous season, and the movie acted as a bridge between the old season and the new one. But one of the characters got replaced by this kid who is an absolutely annoying brat, a 10-year-old who's like a genius, apparently because he's able to go into high school, but he is such an annoying character. Like, okay,
I can imagine.
I appreciate the idea that, the target audience has somebody who's like their analog on the show.
Bridge it along, as well. Yeah, make a bridging the gap as well.
Instead of using that opportunity to its fullest and having him grow with the kids who are watching, which, I mean, I realize it only worked for a little while, the actor actually left after that season was done. So he was only there for the one time, was annoying as all heck, and they didn't really show him growing. Like, what a missed opportunity. Now, obviously, behind-the-scenes stuff does affect, but, come on. Incidentally, the reason I'm thinking about it from a rip-off standpoint is I've had an idea of how to bring that same guy back. If you brought him back now as a mentor character, it'd actually halfway validate what he did all the way back then.
Nice. That's always a kind of a cool idea to try and figure out what's an element I really didn't like or a character I really liked from the story, and how do I fix it? Kind of like what I tried to do with, Rey from Force Awakens, and that one where I was talking about the Force Spike and the Force Plunge to try and write in her earning her place,
Oh, yeah.
And someone came up with the idea I read about, it'd be kind of cool if, in a future Indiana Jones movie, which they're probably going to do at some point, I've heard they might, they bring back Short Round, that annoying kid from Temple of Doom, but he's an adult, and he's a new adventurer, and he is the younger adventurer to team up with Indiana Jones. That sounds like a fun idea, because a lot of people hated that character. He thought it was super annoying. That'd be a cool way to bring him back, and also bring back ties from the older ones. Instead of just being this new young adventurer that he teams up with to try to possibly pass on the franchise to. What if it's an older Short Round?
I'm not as familiar with the Indiana Jones films. More explicitly, I'm planning to rip off the idea that maybe not all heroes are quite, quote-unquote, worth it at the start of your story, but finding a way to pay them off is really cool. Also, absolutely. I started watching an older Sentai series that finally got released with subtitles. I was so excited, called Dengeki Sentai Changeman. And
what the hell kind of title is that?
well, okay, it's not the greatest title, but this was back in like the 80s, so forgive a little.
Well, and plus it's Japanese. Just Change Man is the part that I'm...
Yeah, and they reference change like just about every 5 seconds on their equipment. But anyway, there's a weapon idea that they use that I've never really thought of before. Now, obviously, most Sentai teams have like their personal weapons, and so does the Changeman. And they also have sidearms. Well, this sidearm is really interesting. It's called the Change Sword, but in some form it's a blaster, and here's how that works. The trigger actually like folds out and becomes like a mini shield.
Nice.
And then the gun actually just releases a blade. It's brilliant. Like, I don't know how I've never thought of something like that, like a sword
You've
gun
never heard
type
of
thing.
gun blades before?
Okay, I've heard of gun blades before, but I've never actually really seen them. And it's like, and to be fair, the design is awful, but the idea is wonderful. And so I'm like, I have to use this somewhere now.
See, okay, I guess the running joke of me referencing Final Fantasy continues. Third episode in a row.
Oh gosh!
But there's been plenty of sword guns in Final Fantasy. Like one of them is like there's like
with Final Fantasy, people will kill.
There's like some of them you don't even have to change the mode. Like there's the sword with the hilt on it, but on each side of the hilt at the very beginning, there are these two barrels they can point at and shoot.
Gotcha.
So that's pretty cool though. I like that. Sword guns are always fun.
Yeah, I just think it's something different that I've never really had a chance to use, and it'd be fun to use it. Anyways.
Well, I really like the idea of swords, too, because, like, even, like, in futuristic sort of societies, like, Megazoic, like, it has plenty of swords in it, too. Even though it doesn't really make sense for when there's a bunch of guns and missiles to have a sword, right?
Yeah, never bring a knife to a gunfight.
But there's just something so nice about swords. Like, it makes combat much more romantic. There can be long, prolonged duels. You can see the light of their eyes fade away as you strike your blade right into your opponent. Like, you can't get that with guns. So
it's far less personal, you're right. But there's also... The thing about guns, too, is it doesn't take nearly as much skill to wield well, and so I think that's why swords are romanticized a bit.
Yeah, like, I think it's cool to have swords, even when there's a bunch
But one that can do both?
Well, yeah.
Now you're talking.
So, soon there's probably going to be a Star Wars movie. I mean, lightsabers are pretty cool, and they can block laser blasts. But I think it'd be kind of...
if you aim well.
But, like, I think it'd be kind of fun if, like, the lightsaber could also shoot a blast.
That would be...
Disney's going to have a hold of the franchise forever, so... At some point they'll do that, surely.
Who knows?
Anyways.
Submit your ideas now.
Yep, submit them to Disney. Anyways, as for I'm going to rip off, I rewatched... This isn't really a childhood favorite of mine. I saw it many years after it came out, because when I first saw the previews for it, it kind of looks kind of scary. But I rewatched Titan AE. This is Don Bluth's last hand-drawn animated film. Or just last film, really. I've heard he's worked on a few projects since then. He actually recently... was on a Nostalgia Critic episode. I found out that was kind of cool. He's guest starred on that.
You still watch the Nostalgia Critic?
No,
the Nostalgia Critic hasn't put anything new out for a long time, has he?
It's been out for a while. There's actually a really good Force Awakens episode he did. Anyways, this was his last film, and I really liked it. It's a fun sci-fi ride. Like it's a really fun sci-fi adventure. Although, like I said, it was a little scary. But the reason this is in the preview is because it's the main plot. The Earth gets blown up by the Dredge, which are these super alien aliens. And, it's kind of cool what happens, though. Why? Because, the Earth develops this technology called the Titan. It's a ship called the Titan. And what it does is, it can create planets and, out of nothing. It can create a new home. But it's, uses this technology. And the Dredge, this super sci-fi, super alien race, heard about this, got really scared about the potential of humanity, and blew up Earth.
Oh, okay.
And so, Earth evacuated, right? And then the main character lost his father, Matt Damon, another movie where Matt Damon gets lost in space. Interstellar and Martian, it's on his list. So, anyways. But the visuals are really cool. There's a lot of CGI, but also a lot of good hand-drawn stuff. Also kind of realistic in some odd ways that other movies aren't. There's a scene where their cockpit is about to break apart, and there's another ship they have to get to right above them, but it's in the vacuum of space. The other character says to the main character, he's about to kick the windshield, and the other guy's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Exhale." Gets a fire extinguisher, and then they briefly survive the vacuum of space by exhaling, getting all the oxygen out of their body, and then they use the fire extinguisher to propel themselves upward. That's actually realistic. You can survive up to 30 seconds in the vacuum of space, as long as you have no air in your lungs, you exhale it all out.
Wow, it's kind of like the inverse of holding your breath. I can't imagine, holding your air out for that long. Is that just me?
They actually thought it would be inhale, because that's how it is with water, but in space, no, because if you have all that oxygen within you, it's more likely to, burst within you, the cells or whatever.
No, I understand why from a physical standpoint, even if I'm not like 100% sure on the physics of space. But like, seriously though, like, it's completely inverse of everything. It's like, you know, when you go underwater, you're like, oh my god, I can't hold my breath long enough. But like in spaces, it's suddenly, wow, I can't take a breath long enough.
Right, exactly. Well, like, you know, you've only got 30 seconds, and I was wondering about, like, how does that work in terms of temperature, right? But actually, no, since there's really no friction in space, and there's no, it takes, even if the temperature is like negative whatever, that's something you cannot survive, or even super hot, it would take a while to actually go through into your body because of the way space works. It's weird. Like, even though it might be a temperature that normally a human cannot survive, it doesn't vibrate the atoms within you enough to, like, have an effect, at least that quickly. So the temperature wouldn't be an issue for the amount of time you would have, like, which is, again, like 30 seconds. So, it's kind of cool. Anyways, so what I wanted to rip off on those specifically is, like, something to do as a writer that I think more writers should try out. You can experiment with a different genre. Do a genre you might not normally do as a writer, or an animator in this case, and you can keep within your comfort zone. You can figure out ways to make it within your comfort zone, even though it might not be normally. So Don Bluth, he normally does, like, fairy tales and more whimsical stories, right? So Titan AE is his only sci-fi movie. But the art style is clearly still Bluth's. Like, you know, he's also an animator of his movies as well as a director, right? So, like, there's a guard that they have to try and get past, and it looks like a goblin-esque, like, sort of troll. It has, like, these big horns, and it looks like very fairy tale-esque. It just happens to have a gun. The crew of the main spaceship, there's a lot of these, like, alien-like animals, or animal-like aliens. They kind of look like characters from, like, Land Before Time, or All Dogs Go to Heaven, just a more humanoid form, right? There's an alien chef at the beginning that looks just like a giant cockroach, you know, kind of like the cockroach aliens in Men in Black.
Wait, he was involved in Men in Black?
No, he wasn't involved in Men in Black. I was just using that as, like, there are cockroach aliens. Having an alien just be a giant cockroach is a thing.
Oh, okay.
He didn't do anything to do with Men in Black. That's just what he's referencing there. Yeah, Don Bluth really likes drawing bugs, you see. He likes, like, in Thumbelina or Rasputin's Minions in Anastasia, so he managed to fit that in. And, like, the humans, you know, they're since they're out and drift in space because their planet was blown up, like Earth was blown up, there was this colony where they are, and it kind of looks like those weird dog garbage structures in All Dogs Go to Heaven because these planetless humans are forced to work with what they got, you know, which isn't much. So basically, he figured out a way to keep it within his styles as an animator. So even though it's not his normal type of genre, it's still very clearly a Don Bluth movie. And also in terms of story as well, you know, because, like, he loses his parent because his parent is in the Titan Project, and like, he has to figure out his way to get home. It's kind of like American Tail.
I was about to say, just like American Tail.
Right, right.
I find it interesting that Don Bluth branched out a little bit. Like, I wouldn't have expected it. Honestly, I didn't know that Titan AE was his film. But,
right.
You know,
it was his last film.
Interesting that he drew on some of his other films to, you know, help him foray into this new genre.
Right, exactly.
I think that's a great idea. Use something you're comfortable with, or maybe even callbacks directly,
right,
to something you've done to help you propel you into a new genre, a new world, if you will.
Okay.
It's one of those things that I tried to do when I regularly maintained the Writer's Challenge forum. You know, try and give people a prompt that gets them out of a zone that they're so used to. But there's nothing that says that you as a writer can't take your style and simply apply it to that.
Right, exactly. Like, just basically,
story.
You could be surprised at how big your style might actually be. Like, how wide it is.
How wide your range is, simply because it's how you tell stories. It's not the kind of story that you tell.
Right, exactly. So, I don't know, I like that part. Anyways, yep, that's what I'm going to rip off, I guess. Try to expand beyond my comfort zone. Maybe someday I'll write a story that doesn't involve dinosaurs. I don't know when that'll ever happen, right?
Well, maybe publish one that doesn't involve dinosaurs.
No,
because
I
you
know.
obviously finished Wildlife of Tomorrow, which didn't involve that, and instead involved futuristic animals.
We still haven't
still like
mentioned what that is, because we were going through that last month's episode, but then technical difficulties.
And the crap at the fan, figuratively and
we're
literally.
really building up this Wildlife of Tomorrow train. Like, we're really hyping it up.
It's too bad, because you had a third story idea that was absolutely atrocious too.
We'll get to it at some point. All right, so now we're on the next segment. What we the wit have writ. What have you writ lately, Twit?
Well, Mr. Twit, it is
that's Mr. Twit to you.
All right, whatever. It's the month of November, so it means National Novel Writers Month, NaNoWriMo, or I say NaNoWriMo, it rolls easier.
Right.
But this is now happening in 2017. I didn't have this, like, kick-butt story idea as I have in years past. So I decided I'm going to continue on a story that I did 3 years ago for 2014.
Right.
And also to, help fill out words, a new story that builds on a world I'm creating for one of my collaborative works. Unfortunately, not the one that I share with Donald and our aforementioned friends.
What?
Still need to get on this podcast.
Yeah!
Usually I finish within, not even half the month, 50,000 words. And this year, too, I picked up 50,000 words on the 13th. I'm currently at 60,000.
You are so damn fast. Oh, man.
I reduced my pace after winning,
pace.
even though I'm not done yet because I have a couple of new goals in sight. I am determined to use this month's creative impetus to finish the story that I started 3 years ago that I left undone.
Right.
And I'm about 6 chapters away from the end. So if I can, stop tripping over myself and do it, then I might actually do it.
Right.
Even though that will require massive edits and it might not be publishable. But anyway, it's worth completing the story. So that's
Absolutely.
one of my goals. And the other one is something that I have never done across Nano. As I mentioned, my pace kind of cuts back, unfortunately. I tend to just say, okay, I got 50,000 words. I'm done. Even if the story is not.
Right.
So I've never actually had a month where I updated my word count every single day. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I realize that I would type emails or stuff, and that does count. But I never consider all of it part of Nano, with some exceptions. Even though it might be a pittance, it might only be 800 something words. I had a day where I only had 1,100 words after I already got 50,000 done, and so I'm like, it's okay. I'm going to update the word count today anyway. Because I'm still setting aside time to write, and it's still... And this is the month I do it. I don't usually otherwise as frequently as I do in November. So, since the primary directive of Nano was achieved, I don't feel bad having I only wrote 800 words today, but I still need to add them, so let's go.
Right, I get you. Yeah, you don't really get a lot written done other than November, but you really make up for it in November. I get my writing done a lot throughout the year, right? But I never get done in the rate that you do in November. Oh my god.
Well, that's the thing, though. And you have to keep in mind that this is a matter of quality over quantity. In your case, you write works that are high quality because that's important to you, and there's nothing wrong with it. You put intent behind every word, and so it might take you longer to put them on the page.
Right.
Whereas I'm just trying to spill words, kind of making up for what I do the rest of the year, but because I'm naturally verbose and because I type really freaking fast, what I come out with isn't usually great. As I said, lots of edits will be necessary. However, I have the words down, which I did not before, which is the main purpose behind National Novel Writers Month at all.
Right. That is the point.
So I succeed in that.
I'm getting a little bit better about getting stuff written down and then worrying about editing it later. Especially considering a lot of edits are done with you, and you're like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry." And you're like, I don't...
It was writing at a coffee shop. Sorry.
Yeah, I was writing at a coffee shop.
I was distracted.
I was so distracted. Someone was like, "I'll have a medium latte." That's a perfect impersonation.
My macchiato latte didn't have enough whipped cream on it. You idiot.
Yeah, and then we'll be like, "Oh, but macchiato lattes don't have whipped cream on them." And
I'm sorry, I don't know. I was making it up.
Also, macchiato latte is not a drink.
I was about to say.
There actually is a latte macchiato.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I never had experience in
macchiato means the shots are on top. Normally the shots are on the bottom.
All right. The only experience I have with coffee shop was being in a musical called Coffee Shop, okay?
You were in a musical called Coffee Shop?
That's a story for another time. Yes, I was.
I remember you in a musical called Urinetown. Hopefully that wasn't the same musical. What kind of coffee would that be? Ugh.
No. Coffee Shop was written by somebody who graduated from the same college.
Oh, I remember this one. You were telling about this one. Yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and actually he was also somebody who served in Japan doing a very similar role to what I'm doing now.
Right.
So, fun, small world after all moment. But anyway,
Indeed.
That's my sum of experience with coffee shops, because I don't drink coffee.
I don't drink coffee either.
But you know how to make the drinks because you work at a coffee shop. It doesn't go that way for me.
Right.
Anyways.
A lot of customers ask me, why do you work at a coffee shop if you don't drink coffee? And I always say, that's exactly why I work at a coffee shop. They trust me not to steal anything. Anyways, so as for what I've writ, I'm working on the third Megazoic book, of course, since I've started on that. The second one, Primeval Power, it's in the middle of the editing phase. It should be out by either January or February, so sooner than I thought, but still, it's cool. As for the promotion of the first book, I recently went up to my college of University of Northern Colorado with some other people, and I had an event there with several other people who were published at the school. One of them was a professor, and she was talking about poetry and such. And I talked about the promoting process and how I got published through Amazon and such, and it was a lot of fun. Like, the attendance was way bigger than I thought it would be, so that was pretty cool. And I also, talking about promoting, I played clips of this podcast. So...
Oh, boy. You played recordings of our... Oh, no.
I sent you a video. Did you not watch it?
Not yet. Sorry. I forgot to do that.
Well, I'm going to post a clip of the video here. Now, obviously, it's going to be audio, right? Because,
Great. So I'll get to hear it at the same time as the listeners. Okay.
No, you won't, because I'm going to edit it later.
Oh, fine. I was going to make the joke about how it apparently happens in real time, but the magic of editing means...
Okay, fine. Sorry. Gaze upon me as I open this time portal to observe the events of the past, David.
Without video. Sorry, we can't include
and
video.
And here we go. I'm going to play it for you and the humble listeners. I think I'll talk first about the concept and how came the concept behind this book. Well, first off, this is something I would love to read. This is also in order for me to figure out how to translate what I would love to read to what everyone else would want to read, because not everyone is me. I was like, okay, how can I create a good balance between what I would want to read and what others would want to read? So it's been kind of fun. I'm trying to figure out how to narrow my demographic, right, for exactly. Other than me, right? Who is this book for, right? Because in order to figure out who I'm writing to, it's you just gotta. It's good for marketing purposes. People would be like, oh, well, I'm gonna be like Star Wars, but market things for everyone. Great, but in order to figure out who you're marketing to, it's good to have a specific demographic. If it goes beyond the demographic, great. That's how My Little Pony got super big. But it's best to have a target demographic and stick to that, especially in terms of marketing, right? So, like Stephanie, I self-published, and I was very surprised at how easy it was. But not only did I self-publish, I went to several resources in order to touch it up. Sade, is it Sade or Sade? Sade, so that is correct. Okay, she is the editor, and she was here for a while. She's currently in Ohio, I think.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, so she's credited right here. I'll go back to the book here. The front book. And as well as Sade, I have an illustrator, Natasha, who is right there. She did all these cool pictures of these various dinosaurs for each chapter. Yep. Let's see. My favorite one is. Yeah, I get it. The idea of that came from my parents, because they're like, hey, this is great, but we can't picture this weird dinosaur with guns world too well. So they were like, it'd be nice if you could get illustrations.
Well, that was enlightening, Donald. Thank you for sharing that with all our listeners.
Yeah, no problem. Shame you couldn't hear it, though. Oh, wait, no, you can, because
the power of editing. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch the
What is this editing you speak of? It's magic. Okay.
All right, thank you, Merlin. Anyways, today we have a special segment, partly due to technical difficulties that we had last time.
Right, and we're ensuring that this is going to be a shorter episode.
And partly due to a lack of a much better idea, we decided to kind of tie into Nano this year by talking about the surefire way to get over writer's block.
What is this surefire way, David? Enlighten us.
Well, in Nano parlance, we refer to them as plot ninjas.
Wow, I gasped too hard there.
It's one of those things that if you throw a ninja into a story and all chaos is expected to break loose, it will get you out of your rut. And as I mentioned before on I think our starting and continuing episode was episode 3, that
we're referencing that so many times, man.
I know, because it's so valuable. Anyway,
it is. We should do a second edition of it.
No.
I don't know.
That episode will never end if we keep continuing it. Anyway.
Indeed.
But if you're stuck and you just throw something in there to make it happen, you can find something. You don't have to keep the scene. It's not like you literally have to drop ninjas into your story about pirates and ghost robots or whatever. Thanks, Ratchet. And, and keep them there because it doesn't fit the story, right?
Right.
No, it's simply a way for you to get past your writer's block. And so what we're doing today is that both of us came up with a less than 500 word start, a situation, if you will, and it's theoretically impossible to get out of without either Deus Ex Machina or, as in this particular instance, probably plot ninjas.
Which,
maybe they're not literally ninjas.
Both of which we will have to use, probably, but that's okay.
Yeah. but that's not that kind of the point, right?
Right.
So he wrote a story, Jan wrote a story, well, okay, not a full story, but you get the idea.
Yeah, we wrote a prompt. Scene. And neither of us have heard our other one, by the way.
Neither of us have seen the opposites.
Right,
so this is experimental for both of us.
This should be fun.
We're all hearing this for the first time, except the writer, okay?
All right.
So what he'll do is he'll read out his, and then
we'll discuss, how to plot ninja our way out of it.
How to fix it. Well, maybe it's plot dogs or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Then he'll listen to mine and do the same. And we'll see what we get. Hopefully it's fun. It probably won't take as long, but...
I thought you were going to say, hopefully it's fun. It probably won't be, but...
No, I wasn't saying that. Come on.
I mean, I know we like our self-deprecating humor here, but my God, that was brutal honesty. Anyways. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get out of the way, because I'm going to hear Donald's entire thing without interruption, so that way I can make the best judgment on it. And, well, whenever you're ready, Donald.
Indeed. That's why you're not doing the interruption. Absolutely. Right. Anyways. Alright, here's my prompt. It all started as a morning unlike any other. A guy... By the way, I didn't bother naming my character. He's just a guy. A guy, on his way to work, went to a coffee shop to fuel himself with the necessary caffeine required for him to start the day at his boring desk job. He walked inside the coffee shop, and then paused as he realized something different about today. Everyone was dead silent. Usually there was a constant ambient banter of the patrons discussing their lives and their work, talking about the events of the day and any upcoming events going forward. But there was just dead silence today. Some sat in their seats with their knees to their faces, huddling in fear with tears in their eyes. Some were on the phone with their family members, telling them how much they loved them. Some were on their hands and knees, conversing with a higher power and hoping that someone would listen. The guy had no idea what was going on. Some event must have transpired between the drive from his house to his arrival at the coffee shop, but he shrugged and tried his best to move on and order his coffee. Unbeknownst to him, miles above the city he currently resided, a nuclear warhead launched from North Korea and was about to make impact. Done. That's my prompt.
Awfully current.
Yeah, hopefully this will remain science fiction. But
well, it certainly is science. Whether will it remain fiction? That's
the part.
Oh wow, I kind of see what you mean now.
Yeah, this is totally serious. I was thinking about writing some sort of goofy thing. I was actually even thinking about making a story like there was a ninja, and he was the very first ninja.
Oh,
therefore, there were no other ninjas that could possibly come in and make this plot more interesting. No more plot ninjas.
Oh, come on!
But
maybe just find something besides a ninja to throw in, like maybe a samurai or something. But anyway, as far as your story goes,
maybe a ninja might be his only hope at this point. Like this guy's only hope.
It just makes me wonder why he doesn't actually know that this is happening. Like if a warhead was launched at any point prior to the point where it's almost landing, they would have announced it as news, like take cover.
No, I get it.
Settle your affairs. So there's no realistic way that this guy is completely clueless, even if he's been living under a rock.
What could have happened? He didn't check his phone when he woke up, and then went straight to work. Maybe he was late for work. So maybe it was launched in the middle of the night, and they weren't able to shoot it down. The U.S. intelligence tried to shoot it down. They couldn't. I feel like, though, he's probably in Seattle or some sort of West Coast city because that would be the technology that would be required. In order to go across the Pacific. And also, plus, if it went all the way to, Washington, D.C. or whatever, they would be able to shoot down far easier if it was over the mainland. So he's probably in Seattle or something. I mean, it's a coffee shop, right? So...
Yeah, well, that's not unique to Seattle.
I know, but Seattle's best, though.
I realize that there are plenty of coffee shops in that area. What I'm saying is that... your premise makes a lot of sense, and as far as trying to spice it up, I think there's a definite tone of finality. If the nuke hits,
spice it up.
What they know is gone. However, it'd be one of the. I mean, this is totally me, totally me.
Right.
But, like, I can totally see a speedster superhero coming in and trying to save as many people as possible.
That
like,
could
you're
work.
focused on the guy, but it doesn't say anything about the rest of the people except
Right.
in the coffee shop with him. It does not suggest that there isn't somebody working outside to try and evacuate as many people as possible out of the radius. And
Or if we're having
frankly,
a speedy superhero, why don't we have a flying superhero?
Yeah.
Redirect the nuke, right? So...
Well, that was my next point. If a speedster exists, then theoretically somebody could combat the nuke and, you know, at least delay its landing.
You know what? This is a podcast. We don't have to worry about copyright. The Flash couldn't save him, so Superman's gonna come up.
Well, it could be Quicksilver and, you know, the respective strongman for Marvel, too.
Well, who's also flies, so Vision.
You send Thor with Mjolnir up there to knock the nuke out of its flight path. I don't know. I mean... There
Iron
are
Man.
options.
Iron Man's like, oh, another nuke I have to redirect. Okay, fine, here I go.
What I'm saying is that for the rank and file people, that is a very severe threat, and not much you can do about it. Like, there are only so many shelters. But you could throw out there that one guy comes in and says, "What are you doing in here? Get to the shelter."
Are there shelters in Seattle?
There are shelters in every major city. If they're not planning ahead far enough.
Yeah, I guess this must have been, and you're talking about like how can you not learn this? This just must have been a super like stealthy sort of assault from North Korea. Like, but again, you're right though. Like, maybe the shelters are full at this point. I don't know.
Well, okay, if the shelters are full, that's different. But like, you don't
because like, why would these people just? Yeah, I didn't think about that while writing this. So
there really isn't enough space to address that in a less than 500 word thing. But like, if the shelters are full and these are the people who were left out in the cold, if you will, then you still think that they're going to take refuge in a like the coffee shop might have a basement or anything. That it at least can mitigate some of it. They're not going to be sitting there waiting for the end. And
this is why I don't write serious stories. I don't think about this crap.
Something about how in your Megazoic sequel to Primeval Power that there... No, wait, sorry. This is the third one. I'm not announcing that title. Something about how in your sequel the business like doesn't make any sense because the business plan is complete bunk.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Ugh, man. Yeah, well, that will make no sense for our listeners, but just so you know, someone has something that I did not figure out. So I don't know.
Well, you didn't think it through with the realistic perspective.
I don't know enough about the real world. So
well, you are writing about dinosaurs with laser guns.
I am.
Sorry, I did not mean that to sound as mean as it did.
No,
anyway,
if you did, I don't care. You're 100% correct.
It's one of those things that if you are expecting a nuclear launch, that you have some contingency plan. Not necessarily to stop it, because that's really difficult to do, short of Superman or the Flash or Iron Man or whoever, but that you can at least keep as many people safe as possible. Now, if you had said that all the shelters are full, and that's why these people are huddled up in the coffee shop, just waiting for the end and desperate to resolve things with their loved ones, that's different. But you didn't. Which implies that there are probably still some out there because that's the only thing that makes sense. Why do you think people are so afraid of afraid of a nuke coming?
Hey, not to get all defensive here, but I didn't know this was criticize the story. I thought it was, how do we get them out?
Well, okay, I did offer that too, but I'm just saying.
I get all what you're saying. I'll admit, I wrote this 10 minutes before we started recording. I was like, oh, I don't have anything, so... And I'm going to censor that out, or am I?
I figured you were editing that whole thing out because you wouldn't admit to being practically unprepared.
No, I might, though. It's kind of funny.
How many words was that, by the way? I'm curious.
That was 211.
Oh, mine's a lot longer than that.
Oh, no.
It's closer to 450. But anyway.
Maybe it's not just that there's a nuke that's going to fly in up above. Maybe there's a nuke point at every city in the U.S. Like, they've managed to do a mass nuclear assault. So the people who might be left, even if they survive it, there's no point. Like, this is World War III. It's over.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
In that case, ninjas wouldn't help. I think that your story, like, if they actually land, the story is going to be over, and so there really is no way to insert anything that will spice it up, which means that you've written yourself into a corner.
Exactly the point! So write me out of it! Ha!
Well, sort of.
I got one. Speaking of superheroes and Superman...
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, but even he can't defeat a fleet of nukes by himself.
Or can he? Remember in the first Superman, when there were 2 missiles, and he could only stop one of them. So what he did, he reversed time.
So he reversed the world by flying around it back in time. Yeah, but that's something that only Superman can do, and if you had problems with copyright, like, the podcast doesn't, You wouldn't be able to use that ability, which was ludicrous at the start.
Okay, are you saying that Superman is the only character who is ever allowed to use time travel? That they have a copyright on the idea of time travel?
I'm not saying that he's the only hero, but I'm simply suggesting.
What you could do is have
but that's what it would take. You want a solution out of your corner. You need something that is superhuman to deal with it.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no way to defeat this massive enemy especially if there are multiple nukes.
Right.
But that's as far as I can give you. Unless there happen to be enough heroes, so you've had Marvel and DC and Wildstorm and Valiant Comics and all of these superhero universes from comic books and TV shows and all of it. If you had all of these things enough to deal with all the nukes, then you could write yourself out of this corner. But let's assume you don't, because then what do? You have to have some superhero, that maybe your own original character that is capable of dealing with this stuff, and that's the only way the story can actually proceed. And maybe he doesn't get all of them because that's a realistic consequence, but at least you're not in a complete boxed-in setting.
Or maybe that's not the point of this story. I just thought this myself, so I'm not just saying. I swear I didn't come up with this before. I was thinking about this. Yeah, you're right. There really isn't a way you can save it, unless it's like a prequel to Terminator, and that guy is John Connor. And when they failed to stop Judgment Day, and then this is Judgment Day. I don't know if you've seen Terminator. I actually haven't seen Terminator. So if it's a classic movie that you haven't seen, I haven't seen it either. I just know the plot. So
I don't even know that. So
well, there you go. So basically, the plot of Terminator is that Skynet, it creates a bunch of nukes and wipes out humanity, and but some humans survive, and the Skynet create these robots called the Terminators, right? And then the humans and the robots fight this war. But then the Terminator decides, okay, well, these humans are doing really crafty. What if we send one of our robots back in time to kill Sarah Connor, who's the mother of John Connor, and keep him... And John Connor's the one that will save them all. Will save all of humanity, so they need to kill Sarah Connor. That's why it's the Terminator. He's went back in time to kill Sarah Connor, and therefore keep the hope for humanity from ever happening. So... maybe this is that. Maybe this is a failed of that. Or, what I was going to say, maybe the point of the story isn't that it stopped. Maybe this is all like a character in retrospective. The rest of the story could be just his life flashing before his eyes. Like, in medias res, it's to use another Latin term. This is right before the story ends. This could be the type of story where no one saves them. This is where he realizes that the end is happening, and then he just starts thinking about his life. And, is he satisfied with everything he's done, and this is the end of it all. I don't know. It'd be a very different kind of story rather than a superhero, save the day sort of thing. But that'd be an interesting story. The story, you're right, the story would be boxed into a corner there, but that doesn't necessarily mean the story is over. Or that you can't write anymore.
That is true. I mean, there are other things to do, but the point that you've gotten him to, there really isn't too much ground short of divine intervention of a superhuman nature or other nature. Like
a literal Deus Ex Machina, a god from a machine.
I realize that. So, if you think the military has the power to stop the one nuke, if it's only the one, then they have been acting in secret because the launch was relatively stealthy.
Right.
Then they could do this, but what if they're so secretive and, it's such a nail-biting thing that nobody really knows if they succeeded yet?
Who knows? I don't know.
And so that's why they're waiting. They're waiting for any news, be it a nuke that lands telling them for sure that the military failed, or the military makes a victorious announcement that we managed to stop this nuclear strike from causing a disaster. But, that would be... But you need something to stop the nuke. Is that the only way that you can stop that point of the plot? But you're right. Not all stories have to work from the start to the end.
Right.
And so you could use that technique to write more about this character. At the same time, you would be writing yourself
back into the corner.
Well, you could say it like that, but it's kind of like you're taking the car in reverse and going back to a different point on the road, but you're still driving the same road.
Well, that's the whole term of a medias res. It's a common writing.
Right?
Term.
No, I understand the terminology you're using.
This is more. But this isn't in the middle of things. This is more at the end of things, whatever that term is. In finality res. What is medias? It sounds like medium. So I'm assuming.
Finis res.
In finis res. Fine. That's.
But that'd be my guess.
Okay, something like that.
Anyway, but I'm suggesting that from the point that you left it at, we've got a couple of different solutions for a way to get out of the box.
And that's really what this is about. This isn't about, necessarily getting him out of it. This is more about how do you keep writing.
Well, you've got your options. You've got superheroes, you've got military, you've got any number of clandestine efforts to stop the nuke, because if the nuke lands, it's pretty much over.
Right. Or it's a reflection of something. I don't know. There's basically, the point is, through even this hopeless scenario, there's ways you can keep writing. Multiple different paths you can take.
You've got a bunch of options in the form of other characters that have not been introduced, and maybe they are assumed there. Police helping to evacuate somebody to a shelter that wasn't full.
Right.
Fire personnel doing the same thing, firefighters. Maybe it's the military going to fight the nuke. Maybe there is a superhero who has turned his sights on, stopping the nuke, or at least delaying it so it can be, people can actually be evacuated. I don't know, but it's not hopeless, even if it's something that has not really been done in your story, the pretty much textbook definition of Deus Ex Machina.
Right.
That is there. We all understand it's there, but you haven't focused on it to this point in the story.
Right. All right, so that's my prompt, basically, and I think we had some good discussions there. What's yours, David? Let's hear it.
All right. So mine's about this guy named Nigel Futterman, because I couldn't just keep him unnamed. Don't ask me where I got Nigel Futterman.
There's a voice actress named Nika Futterman.
Nika Futterman. Oh, okay, I actually didn't think about that, but at least not consciously. Anyway, I'm going to read this in a British accent. I apologize if I offend any of the listeners, because the name Nigel just suggests it. I'm sorry, but it's happening.
I know plenty of Americans named Nigel. Actually, no, I don't know anyone at all named Nigel. But so...
Nigel Futterman wasn't a very religious man.
Oh, God.
He found it highly impractical to pray for deliverance from some deity when the true mettle of people was tested by what you could manage for yourself. Consequently, his time in solitary confinement wasn't filled with prayers and praising, raising his voice for his comrades, or hoping to hasten the enemy's demise. It was filled with intense contemplation, searching for any clues that might spring him from this eternal living hell aside from death itself. But with the guards gone out to stop the conflict, he was pleasantly ignored.
I'm sorry.
In fact, it had been too long since he got a meal and his stomach was rumbling. Maybe they were trying to wait him out after all. The key had been stowed on the other side of the compound weeks ago, where normal people were imprisoned. All Nigel had to look at was a blank wall fitted with a phone-like substance, keeping dangerous guests in safety until they learned of a different fate. Sure, until recently they had fed him regular meals, but they were not worth sneezing at, and he had lost some weight and strength during his sentence. "They wouldn't come for me," he murmured. "It's been too many days and they're busy fighting. Nope. I'm on my own. No emergency dial, bail, or parole. Just these walls I can't even do anything with, waiting to see who dies first, my friends or myself. Great lot of good that does. I can't help them fight. I can't escape this place because they leave it purposely barren. Too many brain-dead imbeciles who stayed in here trying to commit suicide, apparently." Nigel had once entertained the idea of keeping tabs of how long he was
Your
contained.
accent is coming and going, by the way.
Since no natural light peeked in to help him measure the passage of time. After trying and failing 3 separate times to make indents on a wall, he gave it up. Consequently, he had no clue how long they had kept him confined, because he didn't bother counting the meals. They weren't much to anticipate by any means, either.
Right.
With no better options, Futterman decided to sleep a bit more, which he had done a lot of recently. He closed his eyes, images flitting through his head of the friends who had abandoned him, still fighting for survival outside the walls of the prison. But the image quality was fading, like someone had blurred the film. He couldn't clearly remember many things about why he came to this place, or who he had battled with before being captured. It wasn't ideal, but his dreams had stopped bothering him a while back.
Is that it?
Yes.
I'll admit, I didn't really hear a lot of that because I was too distracted by watching your accent come and go, and then...
It wasn't that bad!
Well, your accent did, fade away at some points and then come back, but that's okay. You're not British, so I'll forgive you. Okay, so he's basically been trapped for a really long time. He's a special prisoner, right? So, and he's basically given up all hope, and he doesn't remember why he's here. Awesome! That is a real corner for this Nigel Futterman fellow.
I thought so.
So...
you notice how many pains I went to establish that nobody should be near him right now.
Except for Superman. So, Superman.
Oh, okay, fine, if you want to play that card.
Hey, you played it on my story, so Superman...
Alright, you're right, but yours involved nukes.
Superman busts through the prison, and he knows that he's in there using his X-ray vision. And I'm assuming this prison isn't aligned with lead. I mean, it could be. You didn't specify.
And this episode has been brought to you by DC, by the way.
Alright, so he breaks through, he's like, "I'm here to save you!" And then he's like, "I thought you stood for truth, justice, and the American way. I'm British."
Why are you saving a Britishman?
It's like, well, Captain Britain is over there at Marvel, so here I am.
Oh my god!
You want me to save you or not? And okay, fine. Why are you saving me, though? For this very important thing I'll reveal to you in a minute. And he flies off, and then the rest of the plot keeps going.
Well, I mean... okay, it's a little crass, but think about it this way. It's a continuation, right?
Right.
He has come in, he has opened some window into what might be going on outside, and that allows you to continue the scene.
Right.
Which is the point.
Right. Or maybe it could be exactly like we talked about with my nuke thing. Maybe that is the end of the story. He dies in this, and then he calls back to how he got here.
Well, I wouldn't do that. Although I do want to point out, it's really hilarious that in our prep for this episode, I talked about how, even with a 9-to-5 salary man, I would still have, like, some idea of where to go.
Right.
And you ended up using that idea.
Inadvertently, yes. But, I mean, also, I didn't specify 9 to 5. If he's early enough that he's getting coffee and he doesn't realize that this newsworthy thing has come out, maybe it's like 7 to 5.
Okay, fine. But still, you're using a guy who's obviously a plain Jane worker, and he's, another face in the company lineup, and nobody really cares much about who he is outside of his own family and friends, right?
Right, okay, fine. But you know what, that's just a nice...
Which is what I meant by that.
Well, if a guy had family and friends, it might be easy for someone to not have to deal with plot ninjas, because then, the family and friends would save them. So that's probably why we both kind of did like a plain Jane sort of guy. You know?
Right, but that's the thing. Everybody has that person, and so it's never... I did go to the trouble of saying that Nigel was isolated from his friends because not only is he in solitary confinement, but his friends are also busy doing something else. Like, I literally did it, I literally thought about it as I was writing, that I have to make it so they cannot save him unless something changed.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. I like how both of our solutions to these are either Superman or acceptance, and then it's a flashback.
Okay, you explicitly said Superman. I originally said superhero, not just
okay,
Superman.
Fine. Superheroes or flashbacks, and this is the end.
Well, that was your suggestion to both. The flashback.
Okay, fine.
Because I wasn't saying that for mine.
Okay, fine. Let me think of another one then.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you could, in this case, it could actually be a ninja. Why? Because it's a scene. Well, do you have to keep it? No. But literally, a shuriken breaks the door open. A shuriken cuts him out of a straitjacket.
That's a hell of a shuriken. Breaking through a prison door.
It's one of those trick shurikens, kind of like Green Arrow has. Anyway, the shuriken breaks the lock, opens the door, because the key was stowed far away. The shuriken breaks if he's in a straitjacket.
And it's not just any ninja, it's Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, who's come here to,
I don't know. Well, hey, if it was Sub-Zero, he could theoretically,
freeze the door solid and then shatter it into crystals.
Freeze the door solid and then just break it. Yeah, right. So. Well, I mean, but there are any number of things. It could be off the wall, and that's kind of the point. Does it fit the story? Probably not.
I mean, we don't know. It's a thing.
Well, that's true. We haven't seen enough of the story to know this. But, like, does it fit the story? Probably not.
Well, like, we don't know why he's in prison.
But here's the thing. It is a surefire way to get over writer's block. Because when you let something like that loose in the sandbox, it's just, okay, let's play for a little while. Let's have fun. I'm going to use Superman here. Do I keep the scene? No. Do I have to rewrite the scene? Probably. But for right now, I'm going to have fun watching Superman wreck crap. Let's go.
Wrecking a bunch of nukes. Superman gets lit nukes from saving the previous town, then
Flash evacuates all the citizens,
and then Superman takes all the nukes and then throws them at the door that your guy is in, and because it's a really tough door, it requires all the nukes that were going to be thrown in, and then he's free, therefore saving both stories at once. Because Superman is a true hero.
Oh my goodness.
Apparently my story and your story in the same universe.
Well, they could be, although Nigel might not realize that there's a nuke involved. Although, if he's in...
Maybe he's in a North Korean prison.
It did not say where Nigel was. The guy is in Pacific Northwest, according to your theory, which you didn't explicitly say either.
But I'm saying, like, maybe this guy was trying to stop the nukes, and he didn't, and he was stuck in a North Korean cell.
Alright, but anyways... The point is this. If you're absolutely stuck, if you've written yourself into a corner, it might be worth, rewriting the scene to not completely, like, pull something out of your you-know-where to make it work. However, if you're just stuck, like, when we started talking about this episode, I mentioned that my writer's block doesn't usually come in the form of, I have no idea where to go with the plot.
Right.
My writer's block usually comes in the form of, I really don't want to do this because there are other things I'd prefer to do instead.
Right. Exactly.
And it's one of those things that this kind of, it kind of works for both parties. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what to do with the plot, just break the plot wide open and do something completely unexpected. It will give you a good idea, even if it's not a scene you can keep.
Absolutely.
And if you're stuck on, like, oh, I just don't want to write, there are things that I really need to do with my life instead.
Then probably no plot ninja can save you, though.
Well, a plot ninja will start you again.
That's right.
A plot ninja will say, here's a scene, I just need to get writing. And then when you get writing, I don't know about you, Donald, but when I get writing, I tend to start writing more until I've run out of the idea, and then I go on a new one. At least that's how my nano really works.
I do that a little bit. Like, a lot of times when I'm, like, go to work early to try and get writing done, right? Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really want to write, but, I've still got an hour left until I clock in, so here I go, and I start typing a little bit, and then as I keep typing, I'm like, oh, maybe this scene I could write here coming up, and then, oh, I could do this, and then I could do this. It just keeps going until I have to clock on, so.
And again, there's no reason you have to write in order. I've made...
Right, that's your personal preference.
My personal preference is to write from the beginning to the end, which means it has to be somewhat linear.
Same here, but that doesn't mean that you guys have to, listeners, so... If that's not your preference, then don't do it.
It also doesn't mean you can't have a scene like... I think we talked about this in a previous episode at some point. Like, if you know how a scene wants to look, why not write the scene? And you can try and write toward it, but, in your process of going from start to finish of whatever that is, it could change a little bit. Don't be afraid to rewrite it, but if it gives you just this target to aim at, there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely,
edits are a writer's best friend.
Mm-hmm. Indeed
because
they are.
It's something that allows you the liberty of doing what you want when you think you should do it, and like give you an idea of what's coming, or give you an idea that you didn't have before. You don't have to keep it. If it doesn't fit, you can change it. If it doesn't work well, if the scene is no longer valid in the story you had created, you can delete it or keep it if you want to save the memento. But there's no reason for you to not do something like this. If you're stuck.
Absolutely.
If you're truly stuck. If you're in a corner, break the corner. Break the barrier down.
Right. Yeah, these were two really solid corners that we both somehow not only managed to break, but combine. So.
Well, okay, you were more responsible for that, because we just talk about superheroes that can apparently be in 7 places at once.
I was just having fun with it. That was, I don't know, that's my way of breaking...
It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I break writer's block, too. But I was like, how do I make this fun for me to write? How do I make this more exciting? Because a lot of times, when I get writer's block, it's because, I really don't want to write the next scene. Like, and I'm really bored with it. Here's the thing, though. If it's boring for you to write, it's probably boring for a reader to read.
There's that.
So, try and figure out how to make it exciting for you to write.
There's also something to be gained by powering through something like that, too, because, sometimes you have those scenes that aren't as fun, but are really important.
Right, and then in which case, power through them, and then edit it later to make it more exciting for the reader, I guess. So
maybe you just lean into how not nice it is. For example, in my Nano story this year, I got to a chapter where the main character's father, one of the main character's fathers, died from terminal cancer.
Aww.
And so I was writing this chapter where he was dying, and there was a big funeral scene, and a little bit of a personal note. Many, many years ago, like when I was about to go into high school, I lost my grandfather, and I've been in a situation where I actually spoke at his memorial service. And even though I spoke at his memorial service, and even though it's been so many years, I wasn't even thinking explicitly about my grandfather. But as I was writing this guy do his eulogy for his dad, it was so difficult. I was crying, it was so bad, I practically couldn't see the dang screen.
Oh, man.
And those scenes aren't necessarily fun to write.
No, absolutely not.
But they're so important.
And if you got emotion from it and you drew from that emotion that you had, it makes the writing all the more powerful, too.
Right, and it should impact your readers in a similar, maybe not as strong way, but it has an impact. It means something. Okay. And so, those scenes are not every scene in your book is going to be fun all the time. This is how my book goes, the rule of cool and all that.
No, I know. Maybe not fun is not the right word, but just exciting or interesting for you to write. So, all
right, fair enough.
And that scene, while not fun, it was interesting. I mean, that's something you'll remember writing.
It's something I'll remember writing, and how many freaking tissues it took to clear out my dang nose so I could breathe.
Okay, calm down, you schmaltz.
I tap into my emotional side. There's nothing wrong with that. You grew up with 3 sisters. Come on.
No, we're men. Men feel no emotions. We are robots.
True men know when to cry. And causing yourself to cry is kind of uncool, but that was a good place to cry. No,
men just don't cry. I cry way more often than you do, probably. So I talk about this whole man nonsense. I am the
You
most...
grew up with 3 sisters. You didn't have another man in your life besides your dad.
You're the man in my life, David.
Whoa! Okay. And yet you threatened to shoot nukes at me over these episodes.
It's because I feel so empty that, like, I gotta make my other man in my life feel empty too, I guess. By literally blowing a hole through them? I don't know.
How does that help you, though? Because then I'm gone, theoretically.
Then you're literally as empty as I figuratively am. I don't know. Let's just end the episode. This was a good one.
I was about to say, we're really going afield here. But it's fun. But hopefully this gives you some encouragement when you're in those moments where you're stuck, where you're just like, oh, I don't want to write.
And if you're so stuck that you just can't possibly know how to do it, get a hold of us. Email us.
Yeah,
Segue.
absolutely. Well, sorry. Well, sorry to ruin your segue, but I was going to say one more thing. This is just a nano lesson, and that is you have to make time for it. If you do, you can make things happen that no one else can because it's your ideas. Well, hopefully you're not stealing somebody else's, but it's nothing that anyone else will know unless you bring it out. And if you get stuck, maybe you have to break the scenario. Maybe you have to have such a broken move that and you know what? Who cares? If you don't keep it, that doesn't matter.
Who cares indeed?
You use it to get you out of the hole. If you like to get a hold of us and hear more, or if you have any suggestions, or maybe if you need direct assistance.
You're stealing my segue. I do not approve. I have the perfect segue, and you're like, not to ruin your segue, and then proceed to ruin my segue, and then now you're going to take it for yourself.
No, I personally said I was breaking your segue. I'm sorry.
Okay, I got this nuke. This is it. I'm doing it again. I'm bringing back the joke of nuking you all the way from here. Nukes are coming the other direction. Here we go. Button pressed. See you later, David.
Well, I was about to say maybe you should nuke North Korea, then we wouldn't have to worry about your situation being reality.
You know what? You're right.
That was a tasteless joke. I'm sorry. We move on.
Here's another tasteless joke. I'm going to hold back because Japan's been nuked enough.
Oh!
I'm going to hell. How can people get a hold of us?
Well, obviously you can go to his official website, Matthew Donald Creator, and email Matt D. That's 2 T's, by the way, at MatthewDonaldCreator.com. Any questions or comments you have for the show, either of the hosts, please label which.
Yes, please.
Because we both have the same first name. You can use your own email system, or just go, as I said, to the contact page and do it from there.
On my website. Exactly, yep. And if you want to follow me personally, you can follow my professional Facebook account at Matthew Donald Creator, or my Twitter at MatthewDonald64. Why 64? Because back when I started my Twitter and back in my humble teenage years, even though I doubt Twitter was actually a thing back then, so it ruins the mystique of this, but I'm going to keep going. I had about 64 zits all over my face. I looked like the moon, David.
Exactly 64? Are you sure it wasn't more than that?
Oh, my finger is really over this big red button. Right?
Don't push the big red button. That's the horrible idea to do.
I'm nuke happy. I'm like trigger happy for my nukes. Man, it's going to be revealed that story with all the nukes heading towards Earth. I'm the villain there. That's me.
You will break more than the game if you do that. I promise you. Anyway, 64 is it,
man. Okay, so alright, so yep, that's it. Also, one more time, subscribe to us on iTunes because it's there. Leave a comment, leave a rating.
Please. He's on hands and knees right now. You can't see this, but I can.
I am on my hands and knees.
Thankfully staying away from the giant red button that will launch a nuke at me. But please, listeners, we'd love to hear your comments.
I am on my hands and knees, and I'm stretching them upwards and talking to God. Please make my life worth something.
Please keep his hands away from the nuke button. Anyway, you know what to do,
I need
listeners.
to get rid of this nuke button. Anyone can press it, not just me. Like, I have a cockatiel. He might just step on it at some point.
But listeners, if you enjoyed what you hear today, we'll bring you more next month. Hopefully. We'll see how that goes.
You won't, though. You won't be there. We should probably mention this.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing to mention. I actually need to take a bit of a vacation because, well, okay, it's a vacation from the podcast. It's not an actual vacation. Because,
but it's working harder than ever at actual life. So.
As I mentioned, I am a busy, starving artist in Japan, so I'll actually be, making a bunch of music, and so it's going to be really hard to find a time for us to record next month. So we're going to have a guest host. I hate missing it because I love to be a part.
Now, who that is, we'll find out. I'm going to ask a bunch of people. I'm begging on them on my hands and knees.
Right, but we have not selected the guest host yet because we haven't sent out any application, quote
But
unquote.
let you know.
But,
I will let you know.
Well, I don't know if we'll be able to let them know before. Come on, that's not how it works.
No, we won't, but you'll know, I guess.
But we're telling you now, there will be a guest host. So maybe if you put comments on this episode and, hey, suggest some famous hosts that we can get in contact with.
You could be the guest host.
Maybe it's you. That'd be great. Well, if we can make it work.
Wit Sweepstakes. Want to co-host with Matt David? No, not Matt David. Matt Donald. Okay.
Yeah, you get to host with him, not me. Sorry. So if you like my laugh, I apologize. You'll have to wait for another month.
You'll co-host with you, and you'll do your own separate podcast next month. You'll betray me once more.
You're so unoriginally funny. Anyway.
I am, indeed.
Thanks for listening, folks.
So see you next month.
I won't see you next month, but Donald will be back. So until my next recording, thanks for listening.
Until next month for me.
I'm Matt David.
I'm Matt Donald. See you guys later.
Where us two twits talk about ridding from the Ritwit. Peace.
Sayonara.
The Ritwit.